so much for joining book club today. Don't forget to like and subscribe and get ready to hear from some doulas who knows why.
Okay, so we go through some of the different methods of supplementing, like our devices that you can use. The at breast supplementer, which I do have. I was like, I knew there was something else in this bag that I wanted to show. Have a,
you get off that SNS.
Yeah. So you'll have like this is still in the packaging, but like a tube, a French feeding tube that would then connect to the bottle or whatever device. This is a VoluFeed, disposable SNS.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, you'd want to, I keep forgetting that my camera is pointing so high up. So like having it like at breast level, me and Kristen just learned recently about the trick of feeding the tube in through your
nipple shield.
Yeah, nipple shield, as a way to keep it in place. That was not listed in this book. So
shout out to OPR. Thank you for letting us come to your class. It was great.
Then you have this would be like how you might a type of syringe that you might use for syringe feeding, which could be used as like a finger feeder, and you feed just a little bit at a time. Whenever you're using this type of device, you really need to keep an eye on not putting too much in at a time. Watch their cues, their sucking cues. Like, are they sucking? Do they need more milk? Or are they, if they stopped sucking, then you don't push any more through. And let's see, then you just good old fashioned spoon feeding is pretty easy whenever it's small volumes of milk. Then I also have an example of the type of cup that you might use for cup feeding. It's very small. And you might think that when cup feeding, that you'd pour it into their mouth like, you'd normally drink from a cup. But babies need to actually, whenever you're cup feeding, you put it to the edge and you let them lap it up, like with their tongue. So they're feeding themselves. And it's this and spoon feeding is the same way. But it's a lot different than the other types of supplementation because they're not sucking. And so if you have a baby that's being fed this way, babies have a need to suck to be able to regulate their nervous system. So if they're not getting that from this form of supplementation, maybe they'd be more likely to comfort nurse on the breast than if you were giving them a bottle where that was also meeting their sucking needs.
I hadn't thought about that. That makes a lot of sense. Cool.
Was there any other things that it had in here that I mentioned? It talked about the pacifier being a form of supplementation in a way, though they're not getting fed. It is supplementing their need to suck. So that makes them less likely to comfort suck at the breast.
Yep. I like the different descriptions that it goes into on the different ways to feed. That was really good. The than like having pictures of actually using an at-breast supplementer, which I feel like I like the way that it was showing, like actually looping it through the bra to kind of help it stay up and all of those different tricks. The easier that you can make it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's I like that it had like this one comparison chart on two of the different at-breast supplementers that are available.
Lactate versus SNS.
Yeah. So
didn't like that it listed them both just as expensive. Like, what does that? That's not helpful. Just, well, this is expensive and this is expensive. Okay.
Yeah, that's where, like, because these are specifically like made at-breast supplementers. You can DIY it. So that would be like the low cost option.
Yep. Using them is a little bit more difficult, but you can DIY. You can DIY just about anything.
Yeah, and then you can also use those same, like the at-breast supplementers, you can use them as like finger feeders too, if it's like some reason that they're not latching on to breast well or something like along those lines. There's also devices specifically for finger feeding. You can hook one of these French tubes up to a syringe and finger feed that way. Lots of that. I just like to always point out that there are a ton of options besides just the bottle, though a lot of people are going to be more comfortable with the bottle because it is familiar.
Yeah, just sheer exposure.
And it's not another thing that they have to learn how to use. The cleaner.
Well, I mean, you kind of do though, because if you're going to bottle feed and you just hand a bottle to somebody and they're planning on breastfeeding eventually, they're still without, they're going to prop baby up, belly straight up, and just stick bottle in baby's mouth. And I mean, there's all kinds. There's a lot of steps to correctly bottle feeding a baby. So
maybe I should say the perception that it's not another thing to learn.
But the reality is, and we went through.
You probably have. Yeah, it's like you probably have not seen bottle feeding done correctly. Yeah, as a new parent.
I've taught so many parents how to bottle feed. Just be like, okay, I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna bottle feed this baby. I'm gonna say what I'm doing out loud. Feel free to ask questions as to why I'm doing it this way, and just. I mean, I prefer to bottle feed babies in football hold. That's my preference. Sideline football.
Yeah.
Easier to taste. No one does that without being told to.
It's like, yeah, having the baby just like, I like sideline like in your lap.
You gotta hold it up higher. Your camera's way up.
It is. My chair is really low. This is not my desk.
Right.
It's all wrong. Okay. But like having the baby side lying and feeding from the side, it's like you can also I like this and like being able to get a very clear view of how they're latching on the bottle and the flow that they're getting. It's just super visible this way.
Mm-hmm. You can see it. It's easier to staunch the flow. There's a lot of cheek access.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially if you have to do like if a baby has a weak suck and you need, or like if especially like preterm babies are very often needing some support in their cheeks, being able to press in on the cheeks to help them with that intraoral suction.
Yep. Honestly, other forms of feeding are kind of easier. I'm just saying. It's the bottle is what we're familiar with.
I mean, breastfeeding is just like once you get the hang of it, it's the most convenient form of feeding there is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, highly agreed.
I keep just throwing this book down in random places and not remembering where I put it down at. Any other thoughts on supplementation? All right. Chapter 14. One of my favorites and the shortest. You are a breastfeeding mother.
Woohoo!
No matter how you're feeding your baby, how much milk they get, or whether or not they're able to latch, you are a breastfeeding mother.
Mm-hmm.
You're allowed to be proud of whatever you're able to do.
We encourage you to be proud of whatever you're able to do.
Yes, you should be. And yeah, the success is just you tried it and you did it.
Are we going to do the appendix tips for pumping success?
Yes, let's just there are a lot of methods for like how to get the most out of the pumping session, and we're not going to read through all of them, but I wanted to know what your favorite tips are. What do you think are the ones that moms like the most or get the most success out of in your experience?
Get a flange that fits, please.
Yes, more than likely the flange that comes with the pump won't fit. Like
way too big.
The majority of the time it'll be way too big. I have my little nipple measurement device. It's very technical, can't you tell? But when you're measuring the nipple, you're fake boob again. You're measuring the nipple, not the areola. Whenever you are, you can use one of like measurements, but it comes down to what's comfortable. So if you measure at a certain size, see this one, this one's probably like a 15, maybe even could be a 13. But
put that in context, your pump is going to come with 24.
Yes. And it might even come with a 28. Some of them, if they come with two sizes, it's going to be like 24 and maybe a 28. You are going to want something smaller, more than likely. You'll want your nipple should move freely. Like it shouldn't be like rubbing against the side. It should be moving. And it should not pull hardly any, if any at all, of breast tissue into the tunnel. So I mean, you can buy like the different flange sizes, or you could also get there's inserts that you can get that are a little bit cheaper and they fit inside the 24.
And they're
So
tiny.
like especially if you need to buy, one thing to consider too is that both sides are not necessarily the same size. More than likely they won't be the same size. So being able to buy a few different sizes, and maybe even sometimes throughout your journey, your size could change. So if at any point it becomes uncomfortable, then take another look at your flange sizing. And you should be able to turn like your pump setting up pretty high without it causing pain. That isn't to say that you should crank it up all the way. You want to use like the lowest setting that actually gets you milk. But if you're pumping and it's only just like dripping milk the whole time, then you're probably not using the right size. It should be flowing. As once you have like a milk spot, if it's very early on, then drips are more not necessarily a bad sign. But I always like the recommend like that the right flange fit is like number one, but also we get a lot of moms with just like volume anxiety. I like the tip of putting a little baby sock over your bottle to cover it up while you're pumping, so you're not watching how much you're producing, and just distractions. I was always like, whenever I had to pump, I was always in a job where I could even do like check my email and stuff while I was pumping, and just sit there with the pump and focus on anything else other than pumping, and then I'd always end up with more milk than if I just sit there and focus on what I was producing.
Yeah, I've got clients that'll put burp cloths over them. You really can't see anything.
And then just like anything that reminds you of your baby.
Yep. Oxytocin, mixed milk.
There is a lot of research around adding hand expression to your pumping. You can hand express at the end. You could start out hand expressing, get the flow started using hand expression, and then switch over to the pump once everything's flowing. And hands-on, that gentle massage while you're pumping, which you like have to have a hands-free pumping bra almost to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yep. And the warm compress, I always used to put it up under my armpits. It's where all my milk was. Just heat up, just like a wet towel, warm it up. Or there's stuff that you can buy that you can make warm and then put. That's where it did best for me, and it was nice because I just stick it on my arms and then just put my arms down, and it stayed there.
They have those lactation massagers on the market now that warm up and vibrate, that will just rest on your breast. If that's something that you have access to.
Yeah, get you a nice little massage.
Yeah, have it like having your partner give you a neck massage and stuff while you're pumping. If you're doing this like for long periods of time before you even have the baby, having like that additional like just bonding time with your partner has another added benefit.
Yep.
And always, always, always removing milk frequently.
Those are my main things.
Appendix B talks about domperidone, which is like considered by lactation professionals to be the ideal galactagogue and the most effective one, but it's not readily available in the United States. So it kind of talks about the other option is Reglan, which is not really recommended for inducing lactation. So it's just good information to know. But and then Appendix C is a good reference for the herbal galactagogues and side effects and safety.
It's good for me to just hand to people and say, read over this.
Yes. Lovely. I love all the charts that we can just make copies of and hand to people.
Yep. Just jump to page 228, take a look. There's a list. Yep. It's in a chart. It's a great way to present information.
Yes. So overall, what was everyone's thoughts on the book?
It's a good book. It's a lot of fluff at the beginning, and I'm not a fan of fluff, but I recognize the importance of it. But this reading here at the very end was definitely my favorite. It's the part where it's like, this is why I was reading this book in the first place, was to get to the step-by-step information, the how, the why. There's just specifics of this is applicable not just for people who haven't had a baby before. I can use this for clients that are just concerned about their supply. So it's definitely something that I'll recommend for people to read.
Yeah, I loved, like I said, I loved that that she just really humanized babies in this, and that we really get a good consideration of how this process affects them, as well as how it's going to affect the lactating parent. And I mean, it does give very prescriptive step-by-step directions, which is good for some people, and then also has a bunch of like it can meet the needs of like anybody who's wanting this information. If we like hand it to someone who just really wants the charts, it's like turn to page.
Look for the charts. Look, the second part of the book.
There's charts. Just look for the charts.
And it had good pictures of like really good photos of latching, like you get on page 94, and like just good information on baby bonding that has, it boosts feeding, but you don't have to be feeding to do it. And that is important for just having a relationship with baby, whether you're lactating or not, which I also appreciated.
I'm glad that this book exists, because it's like a lot of this information, like whenever you could get it from like a general breastfeeding book, but having one that's going to talk to parents that are in this situation is important for them to be heard and feel like what they're doing is actually possible.